Good evening, this is Rodney. It's currently Sunday evening at 5 o'clock. The S&P's overseas markets have been open for the last 15 minutes. We're going to review the Triton Wave market timing strategy for tomorrow, Monday, August 27th, 2012. I want to first look by taking a look at the Aussie yen. Up here you can see the Aussie yen 15-minute chart, and it's popped a little bit on the opening of the Sunday evening session, mostly off of the strength of the announcement that found in favor of Apple against Samsung, $1 billion award. They're actually looking for $2.5 billion, but the theme of the announcement and the fine against Samsung was don't copy us, but be innovative. So it may mean a little bit more market share for Apple, but I think that's what the pop in the market is about. If we move the Aussie yen to a daily chart, you can see it, not only is it in this congestion from back in April, May, but this is a 50% retracement from the top that happened in March to the low that happened in June. And this right here is a 50% retracement, and it already took out the lows that happened at the end of July. So I look for this continue to move downward and basically unaffected by the Apple decision. If I'm wrong, these will take out the tops, and make sure you have your stops in place. So let's look at the chart of the S&P right now. We're up approximately 2.5 points, 2.5 handles on the S&P. It bounced off the 21 period moving average on the daily on the left-hand chart here, and it's now above the 8 period exponential moving average, and it looks like it wants to go up, but we'll just have to wait and see how Asia opens, Japan, Hong Kong, and we'll see what this means to the overnight markets in Europe also. On the daily chart on the right hand, this is the beginning of the day on Friday, 8:30, and according to the 1597 tick chart and the large wave, that's the combined wave of the bottom two waves on the left-hand chart here. I'm sorry, has nothing to do with the left. The combined waves of T. Let me see, 3, 4, and 5. It took off. The S&Ps took off, just as if you are a day trader. It took off at 9:02 at 1397.5, and just continued up all day long. We can bring this chart down here. So the day before, on Thursday, it went down below at 7:30 in the morning, just before the open, came all the way back to here. Your exit was either when the top wave went above zero and cleared this path on the bottom, or the combination wave down the bottom went above zero. A little more conservative on the bottom wave because it's a longer wave. So let's take a look at Apple and see what happened on Friday. Apple hit a high of 669.48. 669.48. You can see represented on the daily chart, and then it just collapsed into the close and had a little bit of a kickback. The after hours market, it was actually all the way down to 661. I think it closed at 663.22, and then with the announcement in Singapore of the decision against Samsung, it popped 11.5 points. So we'll see how it opens on Monday. We'll see. This is now a new all-time high, but it's also butted up against the 1272 extension on this graph on the left-hand side. So it's a little bit above that. We'll see if it closes. If it closes at or above the 1272 extension, this is going higher. There were actually some plays that I took on Apple back, let me see here. When this, let me look at this a little bit. Let's move to the, okay, on T3, back on Thursday, I think this was Wednesday or Thursday, when this moved down here, I did take a position at 672 that I made note of in a previous video, and when it hit close to the 377 exponential moving average, I took it out. So this was good for a 671. This is good for almost a 20-point play. It was good for about 60% move on an out of the money put. Taking a look at Goldman Sachs on the left-hand chart, everything looks like it's above zero, like it wants to hit 408. So I have not been playing that on the downside. This is still an upwardly trending stock until T1 on the daily starts tipping over. It's starting to show a little bit of sign of that. But I would like to see, before I take a short position, I'd like to see T1, this first wave right here. This is T1, T2, T3, T4, and T5. I would like to see at least some of T1 go below zero in conjunction with the 21-minute period moving average go below zero, and they're right. They're half and half. 2, 3, and 4 are below zero. T5 is halfway. T1 is halfway. I need more of a commitment. I need to see the 8-period moving average crossing the 21, and I need to see them both below the 50. Come back here, rise above it, rise to the 21 one more time while these are all below zero, and then I would take a position on the put side. It's a conservative play, but it's better than just guessing. Okay, let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon on the daily hit a new all-time high, and all the waves have been above zero, so that was not unexpected because it kept trickling up and trickling up. Let's take a look at the, let's do a 1272 extension from last October to a low in December all the way to the top here. And let's see what we can come up with here. I don't know if it'll ever get this high, but it's within the realm of possibility, if we rally a little bit, that Amazon could actually hit 267. I think that's kind of a little lofty, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't go up at least another 10 or 12 points from here. I don't know about 21 points, but 10 or 12 seems kind of reasonable. And there's nothing to indicate on the 21-period moving average that it's an imminent danger of decline. Taking a look at Baidu, I looked at Baidu and I saw that the T1 on the daily was very peaked and it was cresting over, and also T5 was already below zero, T4 was already below zero, and these were making lame moves above on T3, and T4 was above, but one of the waves is right in here and it's about to roll over. But my point was that the peak, as exemplified in past peaks, rolled over when they got to this point. Regardless of what the waves were over zero, it had to come back. As it happened, in conjunction with that peak, it was also a 50% retracement from the peak to the trough here. Well, actually, it's a 618 retracement. So I did take a position right in here. You look on the Baidu on the 21-minute chart. I actually took a position back here, and then it went against me by, I was down about 30 or 40% on the options, but I kept looking at the wave of T4 that it was below zero, and this was still rolling over on T1 on the daily. So back over here on the right on 21-minute cash price, it went down a wave, just on the cash price. It went down once, down twice, hit my target of 110, and I actually got out at 111 because a profit is a profit. It's a very, very nice piece of change. And I'm waiting for it to bounce up. I'm waiting for, this has basically bounced up 110 to 116, finished off at 115.72. And since T5 on the daily and T4 on the daily are basically below zero, and T3 is heading there, on the 21-minute cash, 5, 4, 3, and 2 are still below zero, even though 2 is heading up. But these are short-term waves. So I have re-entered a position on the short side because I'm a believer in 3 steps to anything. So this is down 1, down twice, and down 3 times. Should take us back to 100. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm sorry, back to 100. All right, let's review Netflix. That's its own animal. It's really just not following the market. It kicked up. It didn't fill any of the gap here. It just came into this resistance that happened back in June when it spiked up, came back down, filled the gap, came lower at about a 1272 extension, came back up and barely even covered the bottom of the gap again, and is already rolling over. If we look at the 21-minute on the right, all the waves are below zero, but even more importantly, on the 21-minute cash here, the 8 has crossed the 21. They've both crossed the 50-period moving average, which is here in the red, and they didn't cross back over even though the cash price went up, and they're both rolling below the 377 in a nice, easy fashion. So I'm beginning to like Netflix on the downside. I think the upside play and recovery is basically over, and Netflix is going to roll over. Okay, in the last 2 weeks that I've been doing these videos, I've noted that we've been following MasterCard on the daily on the left-hand chart here, and it's been moving below, even though T2, T3, and T4 have been below zero. T1 was hovering right at. It started to go below zero about 6 or 7 trading days ago, and even more importantly, the one that I was watching was to see if T5 was below zero for the first time since March of 2011, and it did start going below zero on the 16th, 17th of August, and as you can see here, let me stretch this out a little bit. It's had a nice pattern to a nice undisturbed lower pattern to the downside. So I took a position in MasterCard right about 425, 420, 426, and please make note that not only has the 8 period crossed the 21 period, but they've both now crossed the 50 period, and any kind of a hiccup that happened like on Friday of 4 points is an opportunity to short this stock. So you can expect this on Monday probably to come up to the 424 area, and T1, T2 is above zero. When T1 starts rolling back over and T5 5 and 4 and 3 are still below 0, that is a short. So if it gets up to 424, that to me is a short. Target on this is, let's see if I can get a short-term target. The short-term target is 412 with a possibility of 404. Let's see how that works out on the daily. Okay, the 144 exponential moving average is 412, and it always seems to dip below that. So 410 to 412 area. All right, looking at GLD, the gold ETF. I made note in previous videos that even though all of these waves were above 0 or heading towards 0, especially this long wave on T5, the price action had been sideways for a long time. And I said, don't get in this until, if it's firmly on the upside, if these waves are reading this correctly, then what will happen is that this will close above this 144 exponential moving average and wait till it comes back down off of the 21 off of the 8 EMA and kisses it goodbye. Unfortunately, that never happened. It took off and it never came down and hit the 8-period EMA. It was above it by about a point and a half. So that was definitely a missed trade, and it has not given you the opportunity to get back in, and this is not the time to chase it. You have to wait till this comes back down to the 8-period moving average, and hopefully if the waves are still above 0, then you can catch this long to the upside. If you had been following just the 21-minute cash on the right-hand side, then you actually could have played this to the upside long before it took off. But since I like to go, since it's a little more cautionary and a less gambling to take a look at the daily and to see what's following here, I did not play it. All right, lastly, we'll take a look at Google. Google has done an amazing job. On the daily chart, it's gone from 564 up to 678, which is an amazing move in, let me see, in less than a month. So what do we expect from Google here? If we move this chart out, let's look at a weekly chart of Google. And draw some trend lines. Okay, this trend line, let's go back to the daily and plug them in. So this is the top of the trend line, and as noted in Baidu, when these peaks occur on T1 on the daily charts, there is usually some kind of a give back. So in the case of Baidu back in October 2010, it went from 633 back down to 556. So we're talking about 80 points. The next peak, August 2011, it went from 826 back down to, I'm sorry, 628, back down to near 500. That's 128 points. And this move to the upside is 120 points. So let's do a fib tool here. And there's another peak forming here. Also on the 21, if you look over here, 21's looking very tired. The T1 looks like it's getting tired, getting a rollover. Half of T5 is under. T4 is completely under, almost completely under, and this is rolling over. So if you put a fib tool on this, on the daily, from the last peak to trough, we get a, whoops, let me move this back here. We get a 50% retracement at 619 all the way from 682. And if we just look at the 21, what it's done very recently, or I'm sorry, take a look at the at where the where the 377 is, and that's at 656. Let's go back over to the right-hand side, and 656 puts us right about at the 21 period moving average. So I can see that happening easily. That's from that's a put play from 678 to 653. And it could come all the way down to, as I mentioned, 50% retracement of 619. Let's take one more look at the ES before I sign off. That's now currently up 200, and T1 is steadily hovering around 0, as well as T2 is below 0 now, and the longer waves of T4 and T5 are above 0. So we'll wait and see what happens. I like watching the evolution of these waves to see which way they're going to fire off, but I wouldn't short the S&P here until T4 is firmly below 0, as well as T5. Have a good evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend, and good trading, everyone.